All right, so I have only had a rabbit for about 3 months now. And while I'm not an expert, I think I can let you know about a few things that you probably should know before getting a bunny. The first thing is that rabbits tend to have like different personalities. And depending on the kind of personality that they have, they depending on like what kind of demeanor they have, they will chew up all your wires. We have been pretty lucky in that Liam doesn't seem to have like a huge chewing instinct. Then we've tried, and he just doesn't really chew things, and that's probably why we're having such an issue with the hay. But there is a good chance that whatever bunny you get might love themselves a good electrical wire. So like bunny proofing your apartment would probably, or your house would probably be a smart thing to do. The second thing, which has been pretty relevant to our lives, is that it is summertime and he sheds like a motherfucker. Like, just as an example, I did like a quick brush through of him, just to try to like get like the top layer of under fur out. Look at this brush. Look at it. I've seen videos of people with their rabbits just straight up like taking the excess fur right off their rabbit and sewing it into blankets and sweaters and stuff. And while I am not a crocheter or a knitter in that way, the fact that I have considered multiple times this week just trying to get as much of his fur into yarn as possible and giving it to my crocheting and knitting friends. That's how much fur comes off of this little thing every day. The other thing worth noting is that as much as they shed, they are not going to want you to take care of the shedding at all. Like, I am trying to groom this little man, and I just have to get him. I just have to get him as he comes close to me. And it takes a little while, which is why I get up at an ungodly time in the morning. See, look, that's just a few pass-throughs. Look at how much that is. Another thing is that their diets are they're pretty easy to follow, but like getting the right balance is kind of the thing. They mostly want to eat hay, but if they don't have like a hay diet to begin with, it can be really difficult trying to get them on a hay diet. And I think part of our struggle is that we were feeding him too many pellets, and the pellets that you feed them are really important. Like, we had to swap out his pellets because he was being fed like this pellet seed mixture before we got him, and he really liked it, but it was really not helping him eat the hay. So we had to swap him to a more like nutrient dense pellet. That way we could feed him less of it. That way he would start eating his hay. And they mostly need to be eating hay, like 70% hay. It helps with like their teeth, and we're lucky that like his teeth are okay, but because of the breed that he is, his teeth are never going to be in tip-top shape, and we're going to have to keep track of like a few other things. Because as we learned from the vet last week, Liam is an American Fuzzy Lop. Therefore, he has like the smushed up face of his breed. They're kind of like the bunny equivalents of pugs and like English bulldogs, where like their noses and their snouts are kind of like smushed up into their face, as opposed to like a bunny that has its ears up. A bunny with its ears up is going to have a longer face. This is the brand of bunny food that we feed Liam. And just to show you, we were feeding him like a couple of these every 2 or 3 days, because it would take him about 2 or 3 days to get through it. But in reality, he needs to be getting about one of these twice a day. This is about 1/8 of a cup, and it'll be different depending on like the size of the rabbit. But like, you just, instead of doing a couple of these and then he's good for a couple of days, you need to do one of these twice a day, and therefore like he's in a better position. And the last thing I can think of off the top of my head is that you are going to think that you have a good idea of how much these little things can poop. And I'm here to tell you, you have no idea how much they poop. Like, this is just a couple of hours of him out. Then once we put him back in his cage, we're gonna have to vacuum up something fierce. Like, the rug that we are both sitting on is going to be sacrificed to the apartment gods at some point, and eventually we will be replacing this with a rug that can be washed. And then even then, we're going to be putting Liam into like an enclosure, because what you really want for a rabbit isn't necessarily a cage. Like, we've got a really big cage for Liam, but it's not quite enough space, so we're going to need to create an enclosure for him, which we know how to do. We just need to get like the supplies for it. And in the meantime, we let him out for like basically as long as we're home, which leads to all of this poop. And this is a decent size of poop, considering that he poops less now that we have fixed his diet and he eats a little more hay. Because before, he was dropping a few more Secos than I would have liked. Hello, sir. That's another thing. Rabbits poop two different kinds of poop. There is these little dropping guys, and then there's these bigger, softer ones called Secos. And those are essentially the ones that he has to redigest. So if you don't see a lot of those, it's because your rabbit is eating them. And that's how we knew we were having an issue with Liam's diet, with the balance of what we were feeding him, because we were starting to feed him a lot of lettuce and a lot of greens, and he was leaving more Secos than he could eat. So at that point, we had to cut off the leafy greens, and you're probably going to have to too, because the pellets that we feed him are pretty nutrient dense, so we don't necessarily have to worry about supplementing with vegetables. But we ended up making him just real gassy and all of that, and he was just pooping something else. So you'll kind of know when you need to tweak his diet a little bit, because his poops are going to be a little bit more unmanageable. Anyway, I know that's not like the full length and breadth of what you're going to need when you get a rabbit, but this is kind of what we've learned over the last like few months. And I hope that when you are ready to get your rabbit, that he fills your life with as much joy as Liam has given us.